Hi everyone, welcome back to the series of videos that I'm doing on healing anorexia through Ashtanga Yoga. I don't know where you are in the world, but I'm in New York, in upstate New York, and it's freezing today, and we just finished building our home, and we have really old windows, so there's wind coming at me as I'm speaking to you. I hope the rest of you are warm in your homes. So thank you for being here. This is the third video of the 5-part video series. I am Bibi Lorenzetti, for those of you that don't know me. I'm honored to have you listening to this. Today's topic is the different phases of healing. And I would like to begin this session by reading a little piece from the Upanishads, specifically from the Katha Upanishads. Says, this is chapter 1, verse 3. Says, know the self as lord of the chariot, the body as the chariot indeed. Discrimination is the charioteer, and the mind the reins by which it governs. The senses, say the wise, are the horses. Selfish desires are the roads they travel. When we mistake the self, the sages say, for the body, mind, and senses, it seems to enjoy pleasure and suffers sorrow. When a person lacks discrimination and lives his mind undisciplined, his senses run hither and thither like wild horses. But when they obey the rein like trained horses, when he has discrimination in his mind is one-pointed. The man who lacks discrimination, with little control over his thoughts and far from pure, reaches not the pure state of immortality, but wanders from death to death, while he who has discrimination, with a still mind and pure heart, reaches journey's end, never again to fall into the jaws of death. With a discriminating intellect as charioteer and a trained mind as reins, he soon attains the supreme goal of life, to be united with the Lord of love. So I absolutely love this verse. And it's not only in the Upanishads, but it's basically what the whole Bhagavad Gita is about, right? About conquering the senses, and about the senses being these wild horses, right? Or desire being these wild horses, and the senses being the reins, and the mind being the charioteer, right? So if we can clean up our mind and make it this pure place, then we're directing the senses or the reins in a much more lucid and truthful, non-harmful, established way. And therefore, the horses, the wild horses, or our desires will no longer be running us around, right? We will lead a life that is free from desire. And why this is important in the process of healing is because as an anorexic person, you are generally driven by the desire to, and the fear to not become big, to not take up space, or more basically, at just a very basic level, to not eat, right? Even though to not eat is not really, it's kind of like the tip of the iceberg. It's how it manifests. So the whole why Ashtanga Yoga works, and we visited that in the other videos, is that it works on the mind, right? We're beginning to work with the body to let the body be free of suffering, so that the mind can rest within its seat. And through the breath, we begin to control the mind, right? And when we can begin to control the mind, we can begin to transform ourselves, right? Because now we no longer are driven around or pushed around by our vrittis, by our constant formations, fluctuations of the mind, but we are driven by a sense of instilled balance and wholesomeness that is from within. And the vrittis, or the fluctuations, the thoughts that the mind produces, are now a little quieter and a little less we're a little less attached to following through with every thought, right? We kind of like sit back and watch the thought pass, instead of sit with our sympathetic system super fired up, ready to grasp at every thought that comes by, right? We're more taking the back seat and just kind of like chilling and watching the thoughts pass and seeing the space that is between the thought and ourselves and choosing to stay put instead of grasping, right? So this is the whole idea of the practice. So what are the phases, the different phases of healing? I'm going to identify 5 of them so that we don't get too crazy here. So the first one is to acknowledge and to commit. So we acknowledge that we are suffering and that we are depriving ourselves of nourishment. We acknowledge that perhaps we are too small, right? In the anorexic vocabulary, a lot of when we get to a very deep state of anorexia, everything is based on a number. How much you weigh when you step on the scale is kind of the what gives you a sense of like, I'm okay, right? The mind, the ego, the anorexic ego mind tends to choose a number at which it's safe and it's under control. And whenever you vary off that number, right, especially above that number, then the body, the mind goes into a state of disarray, right, and fear kicks in and all kinds of inadequate actions are taken in order to establish ourselves back into a state of I'm okay. So the first step is to acknowledge this, acknowledge that you are being driven by fear, and this fear is inexistent, right? It's all a formation of the mind, and therefore you can choose to get rid of it. So you acknowledge that you have a problem, and you begin to be proactive about it by committing to a practice that is going to heal you. So you commit to showing up every day, no matter what. And the second phase of that is practice, practice, practice. So you've committed, you've acknowledged that you have an issue, and you are now committed to having faith in a system that you know is going to heal you. And having faith means that in this process, there's going to be things that come up that you are not going to like. For example, there is the possibility that you begin to gain weight. There is the possibility that you begin to need to eat differently, just spontaneously, out of the magic of the practice. And so you having made that commitment means that no matter what happens on the path of the practice, you're committing yourself to trusting, right? Trusting something that is outside of your mind, that has been around for centuries, and that is going to establish you in health. And you trust it because you know that you can tell your anorexic self that you can trust it because you're doing physical movement. So it's not like you're sitting on a chair and being inactive all day and just eating. You're being very physically active with your body, and therefore things are changing and you need to nourish those changes. So anorexia is never going to make you fat, and now I'm just straight up talking to the anorexic mind, right? So the word fat is a big deal in this realm. So anorexia, Ashtanga Yoga is never going to make you fat. Ashtanga Yoga is going to get you to a place where you can finally learn to trust your body and listen to it, right? And then that listening will guide you to do whatever it takes to nourish you. And when you're listening to your body is never going to let you down. When you are doing a practice that is bringing you into wholeness, you're never going to be so hungry that you're going to turn fat. You're going to be hungry enough that you're going to eat until you're full. And when you are listening, not only are you learning to listen for when you're hungry, you're learning to listen for when you're full, right? So often what tends to happen is that when you begin to heal and you begin to discover nourishment and being okay with eating, it tends to go to the opposite side of the scale. So you start to feel really free about eating, and you maybe you think that it's just about learning to eat, but really what will keep you safe and what will allow for you to really be established in health later on is learning to listen when you're full. So that's the next step though. So I've gone ahead of myself. So practice, 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 right? So this is the second step. And there will be this sense in this second phase that you have kind of mastered it. Like you're now probably eating a little bit more because Ashtanga is making you hungry and therefore you're having to eat. You're starting to get more familiarized with your tastes and with what times your body is hungry and what times it's not, and what things are beneficial for it and what things are not beneficial for it. Now, whether you've already learned how to listen to that and follow through, that's individual of every person, but this is about the time when that begins to happen. And so there's this sense the ego mind is really happy at this phase, because it's like, I'm eating, I'm exercising, and I'm not gaining weight. Because usually there's the weight piece tends to take a little longer to catch up, because when you've deprived yourself of nutrition for X amount of years, you have to understand that your body is starving, your cells, your organs are starving. And so it takes quite a while for the weight to catch up. So at this phase, your mind will believe that it's healed because you're eating and you're not feeling the pressure of hiding and be ashamed of your body. But you need to be aware that this is not a final destination. And so this leads me to the third step, which is a relapse. So from my own experience and from having watched students go through this, after this initial phase of I'm practicing, I'm eating, I'm healed, there's a relapse, because eventually the weight catches up and it catches you off, it like throws you off your feet, and all of a sudden you don't know what to do with yourself, because now your body is hungry, it's used to receiving nutrition, but your anorexic mind is not okay with the weight that it's put on. And so this is a good place where you would want to get some kind of help, exterior help. I worked for a long time, and I still work with Abdi Asadi, who is an amazing healer, and he's really helped me with just being really sincere with myself and really seeing that process of what I was talking about, sitting back and watching the thoughts. So he really helped me at the beginning to acknowledge and make a distinction between thoughts that were created by the anorexic mind and thoughts that were generated by the healthy mind, and how to really use the asana practice to learn to sit back. So use that feeling that you get in Shavasana of complete release, of complete stillness, of complete unity, and take that into those moments of complete freak out, right? That moment of when maybe you have that extra piece of food and you all of a sudden feel really guilty, and you kick into the mode of feeling ashamed, feeling like you want to cut a piece of your body off, feeling like you want to throw up, feeling like you want to hide forever, and sitting with it, acknowledging it, looking at it, letting it go, not grasping, and knowing that these feelings are not permanent. This body, this weight is not permanent. Everything is changing. And so the way that you feel in that moment is going to shift. And the less importance you give it, the faster it's going to shift. And now the second step to that is that usually there is a sense of like, I'm going to be judged by someone that is outside of me, right? And that is not true. There is no one outside of you that is going to judge you for having gained a pound or two, for having eaten that extra piece of whatever it is that you think is going to make a huge difference in your body. The only person that is judging you is yourself. And so my advice in this phase is that you give the anorexic mind a name. And then you sit in front of the mirror and you look at yourself straight into your eyes, and you see where you as a little girl is. And you talk to that girl, and you know that the nourishment is going to that person, right? That girl or boy, sorry. The nourishment is, and the process of healing is for that person that is still within you. And everything else is this other person that's your mind, and that is not there to stay, right? It thinks that it's protecting you, but it's not. And so you need to sit down with it and look at it and tell her or him that you understand that they're trying their best to help you, but that you no longer need their help. And you let it go. And initially, this is not easy. Initially, this is very hard, and that is okay. But you have to keep trying. this is a very important moment in the process of healing, where you can either turn back, or you can decide to muster up your strength that you've seen on the mat, right? You can go upside down, you can go backwards, you can hold yourself on your arms, hold yourself on your head. You can do all kinds of things through your willpower and through your strength. So you can do this too, right? You can sit there in the midst of suffering and take a deep breath and choose to not attach to those thoughts, and know that you are not alone. Know that I've been through it. Know that someone else that you know is going through it right now. Know that a lot of women, I don't know the percentage, but I can assure you from the amounts of emails and the amounts of messages that I get from women all over the world, you are not alone. Most of us have suffered through this, or are suffering through this, or have had some kind of variation of this. So you're not alone. It's okay. There's no one there to judge you. And at the end of the day, you're here to do your duty, and you need to be healthy to do your duty and to be happy. So in the relapse, know that no one is judging you. Identify that part of your mind, give it a name. Identify the you, the little you inside you, and remind yourself of her or him every day. And know that whenever someone says that you look healthy, when you ask them, how do I look? Right? I remember I used to be obsessed with asking my brother and my best friend and my boyfriend, do I look fat? And I would always be upset when they would either tell me, no, you look the same, because I didn't accept that answer, because I knew I didn't look the same, or I thought I didn't look the same. So I thought I was being lied to. And I also was very sensitive to anyone who told me that I was healthy, because in my mind, in my anorexic mind, healthy meant big. And I wanted, that anorexic mind wanted to keep me unhealthy. So it was really painful at first to hear those things. So I had to tell people to please not tell me that I was healthy, that I looked healthy, and to please not respond to my question when I asked, how do I look? But to try to shift the topic to something else. So I really suggest that if you have a group of friends or people that you usually go to when you feel ashamed, and ask them to help you, right? To help you see other parts of you. Like my little sister was an angel in this. She would always just point out to something beautiful in me, and she would repeat it over and over and over again. And to this day, anytime that I feel a little bit uncertain about myself, or I'm having a hard time, I call her, and she always has a positive reassurance of who I am beyond my body, right? And that's something that we have to learn to do for ourselves. But, in hard times, it's good to have someone that's external to remind us of that. And practice should be a place where you are reminded of that feeling, right? Practice should lead you to feel like you are this beautiful being that is beyond your physical. Like it's a beautiful communion with this beautiful part of yourself. And that's what others see. And it doesn't matter your shape. When you're beautiful within, everybody sees you as a beautiful being. And it doesn't matter the shape that you have. Okay, so the fourth step is I give up. And I'm willing to listen. So what this means is that you've been through the relapse, you've struggled, you've realized that it's not worth it. Like it's really beginning to bother you whenever your anorexic mind pops in. You can't take her anymore. And so you surrender to the practice. You surrender to the process of healing. You surrender to being okay with growing. And you surrender to allowing the practice do its thing. Right? And whenever these thoughts come up, there's a sense of, I surrender to the practice. I surrender to this process. And so this allows for you to not have as much grasp onto these thoughts, these negative thoughts, but to begin like seeing them pass and just have this attitude of like, I just can't deal with you anymore. Just like let it pass. It's not worth it. And when the anorexic mind begins to feel that conversation begins to have less presence. You don't generate it so much anymore, right? You put your mind somewhere else. So you surrender and you learn to say that it's okay. Whenever you feel guilty, you find this place, like you go back to this place within yourself where you feel at peace, and when you feel at home, and you just say to yourself, it's okay, tomorrow is another day, and I can hatha yoga anushasanam, I can begin again, right? And so you do that over and over and over and over again, and this is where you are ready to let go of your scale. You are ready to let go of yourself as a number. You are no longer a number, but you are a feeling. You strive to feel beautiful from inside, right? To feel your weight from inside. To feel weightless from inside, right? You practice and you carry that feeling throughout your day. And when you eat, you bless your food, and you take it in as a blessing, and you learn to listen to when you're full, and you learn to listen to when you're hungry, and you learn to respect that. You learn to say no to food when you're not hungry. You learn to say stop whenever you're full, and then you're okay. You're fine. Because food is no longer an issue at this phase. Food is something that nourishes you, and you can just let it be when it's there, and let it not be when it's not there. And this is when you go into step 5, which is live a disciplined life, right? And this connects to step 1 of that initial commitment that you made. You made a commitment to be disciplined. And that's something that you're gonna do the rest of your life. That's something that Ashtanga Yoga requires. The discipline of showing up every day. And when you can do that for yourself, you can be established in health. I will expound on that in the next video, which will be about leading an anorexia-free lifestyle. So just to recap, the 5 stages are acknowledge and commit, practice, 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 relapse, I give up and listen, and I live a disciplined life. So some tips in order to kind of stay on this path and go through these phases. Some of these I've mentioned in this talk, some of them I didn't, so I'm going to say them now. Build a discipline, build new routines at each phase that you feel comfortable with and that you can integrate into daily life. Show up for yourself. Get curious. We talked about this in other videos. Become an expert at eating. Become an expert at cooking. Become an expert about nutrition. Learn to cook. Learn about what you're eating so that you're not scared, but you know what you're putting into your body. Call your friends. Have a group of friends that you know that you can call when you need help, and you know that they won't judge you, but they'll remind you of the beauty within you. Identify the anorexic mind and give it a name. I highly recommend that you do the exercise of looking in the mirror directly into your eyes, nothing else, and stare at yourself for at least 20 minutes and see what happens. I started bawling and I couldn't stop crying for like 2 hours when I did this. I did this when I was in theater school in 2008. That was a big moment for me. And I had other relapses after that because I was 24 at the time, or 23. But it definitely brought me to a place where I acknowledged that there was a little me inside, and I really wanted to learn to take care of that little me. And it took some years. It took another 10 years to embody that and to lead a life where I'm continuously nourishing that little me. So I highly recommend that you do that exercise. And whenever your anorexic mind kicks in, call her or him out on her shit. Don't let her or him kick you around, lead you around. Identify what you have to steer clear of, things that are big no-nos, whether they're situations or groceries that you can't buy, things that you can't have around that otherwise you'll indulge in and then later feel bad in. Again, this taps into discipline, right? Fill your cabinets with things that are healthy, that you're not going to want to munch on all the time, and leave treats for when you go out. And make sure that you have like a physical routine, your Ashtanga Yoga routine at the very beginning of the day, and then have some kind of meditation routine sometime either at the end of the day or in the middle of the day. And I'll talk more about all of this in the next video about leading a lifestyle that's free from anorexia. So please stay tuned. I would love to hear from you. If you have questions, you can email me at info@bblorenzetti.com, or just go to my website and send me an email through there. You can also message me through Instagram, bb.lorenzetti. And as always, I like to remind all of you that I lead yearly retreats in different locations all the time. I love to travel, and I love to take people around the world with me. And retreats are usually a time taken away from your life where you really connect to yourself and slow down and focus on your physical and spiritual practice and really advance in them. I try to keep my retreats at a smaller number because I've had bigger retreats in the past, and I realize how important it is to have one-on-one attention and to give time to answer questions and really connect with students. So this is, whenever I go on retreats, an opportunity for you to really ask questions and get curious and learn, grow. So I have 2 coming up, one in Costa Rica, March 29th to April 5th. I'm going to be taking a group of 10 people, and I still have some spots. And then I have one in Portugal coming up this summer, June 30th to July 7th. And I'm hoping to have some of you join. This will be 15 people. And the topics are always changing. I always am open to demands on what you're trying to learn. So please go on over to my website, bblorenzetti.com, and check out some of the content that I have. And I hope to see you in the next video.